As one of the premier Western fighting games of the 90s, Rare and Nintendo's Killer Instinct set the arcade world on fire when it was released in 1994. With a memorable character roster, unique gameplay mechanics, and a killer announcer, KI found itself as one of the most distinctive fighting games at the time, and a sequel shortly followed. Released in 1996, Killer Instinct 2 was meant to be the first game, but even better. New characters, new moves, new stages, and even new story content were all found within KI2, and even though I love the first and the third games in the series, I've never played KI2's arcade version before. Not only will we be exploring the final game, but we'll be taking a look at how the game was created in the first place and how it was received upon its release to fully understand all there is to know about this game. In the past, I made a video about the first KI, and I concluded that while revolutionary for the time, it hasn't aged that well, especially in the gameplay department. It's very much stuck in the 90s with its clunky input detection and character designs, and as KI2 released only 2 years after its predecessor, you might think that the game wouldn't have any new gameplay additions, but you'd be wrong. Without further ado, let's dive into the world of Killer Instinct 2! After the release and subsequent success of the first Killer Instinct, development quickly began on its sequel, and many of the same developers from the first game returned. With a skillful developer team who had lots of familiarity with the source material, development seemingly went smoothly on KI2. It must be said, however, that certain members of the team, like programmer Martin Hollis and composer Graham Norgate, both left the project midway through development to work on Rare's other games like Blast Corps and GoldenEye 007. Even with Hollis and Norgate departing, the team at Rare were making solid progress on KI2, as they were able to design a new combat system in under 2 years. While the basic gameplay mechanics of the first game returned, they were retuned to favor a more offensive playstyle. In a GamePro article detailing online chat room messages from series creator Ken Lobb, it was revealed that KI2 tried to fix the issue of people turtling by making the aggressor the more advantageous player, with Lobb even stating, "Death to turtles." Lobb also seemed open to the idea of Killer Instinct 3. If only people knew back then how long it would take for such a game to release, but I digress. KI2 runs on the same arcade hardware as the first game, and the sprites were also created using SGIs, which were, at the time, high-end computers that were responsible for the CGI in many Hollywood films. Ever since Donkey Kong Country's release on the Super Nintendo, Rare had been using SGIs to create and animate their sprites, and these computers are why their games looked unlike anything else. Thanks to their innovative and forward-thinking development process, KI2 features multiple different endings for every character, and these are triggered depending on how you play through the game. What you might not know is that according to Chris Tilton, a programmer on KI2, there were many endings that were finished but had to be scrapped due to time purposes. These are still in the game files, and they detail many characters like TJ Combo, Tusk, and Maya for example, all presenting the player with different kinds of endings. Even though Killer Instinct was an arcade fighting game, Rare fleshed out the game's lore and made it so that if you wanted to, you could get lost in its extensive game world and learn about every character. Other types of cut content include a character who went by the internal name of Vampire, an unfinished second danger move for Orchid, as she's the only character in the game to have one danger move, and a test finishing move where Fulgore shoots out miniature versions of himself at the enemy. This move is believed to have been a test for changing the game's lighting in real time, as well as flagging the end of a round in the game's code. There are other unused moves in the game's files, but I don't have the time to include them all, so if you're interested, please check out the Cutting Room Floor website's page on Killer Instinct 2. And speaking of external sources, I found an interview with one of the game's developers on the Rare Gamer website, and it contains some pretty interesting information. As a disclaimer, I was unable to find the original source of the interview, nor any of the names associated with it, so please take this information with a grain of salt. Apparently, Killer Instinct 2 started development as a Nintendo 64 exclusive, but there were 2 things that Rare had to consider. Firstly, with the overwhelming success of the first game in arcades, both fans and arcade operators demanded a sequel for the arcades. And secondly, Nintendo hadn't even provided Rare with Nintendo 64 development kits yet, so they couldn't work on N64 games even if they really wanted to. This interview also reveals that development was full on throughout the entire dev cycle, and that things were being tweaked and created up until a few weeks before the game went gold. A team of 7 full-time KI2 employees within Rare also created the game, with additional programmers and artists pitching in every now and then to streamline development. Quite frankly, it's pretty astonishing how under 10 people created this entire game from scratch. A dedicated development team with expert knowledge of their technology is a surefire way to achieve success, and with the new gameplay mechanics introduced in Killer Instinct 2, the series was about to get even crazier. Much like the first game, KI2 features 6 buttons with 3 punches and 3 kicks. These are your normal attacks, and when you combine them with certain motion inputs, you can perform a special move. Every character has their own unique specials, and while some of them share common types of specials like anti-air DPs for example, most of them are unique. From shoulder tackles to acrobatic kicks and even eye lasers, there's a lot of move variety in the game, and all of the moves are animated exceptionally. But normals and specials aren't what the series are known for, however, as if you ask someone to quote Killer Instinct, they're definitely going to mention the combo breaker. Each character has their own combo breaker input, and you can use this mechanic to escape taking damage from a combo. Honestly, going back to this mechanic in KI2 after playing a lot of KI 2013 makes it very confusing to use. In that game, if you see a heavy attack, you press both heavies. If you see a medium attack, you press both mediums. Simple, right? In KI2, the strength of the move doesn't matter, so you have to see if it's a punch or a kick attack. If it's a punch, you can perform a kick input and vice versa. If this seems confusing, it's because it is, and it really threw me for a loop when I started playing this game. Another important aspect of the game are ultra combos. When the opponent's life bar is flashing red and the match is nearly over, you can input your character's ultra combo after landing at least 2 hits, and this will finish off your opponent in a dominating manner. However, if your opponent has full meter, they can actually break out of these by performing one of their supers, believe it or not. Meter is a new addition to the series, and you primarily use it to perform certain moves in neutral, like anti-airs, or to get some extra damage in combos. Speaking of combos, we haven't even gotten into the game's combo structure yet. You start a combo by performing an opener, and then you can press any button of a lower strength for an auto double before doing a linker, one of your special moves, before ending the combo with an ender. This system can easily be difficult to understand for newer players, but it's part of what gives the series its identity, and doing one of these combos feels amazing. Not being able to do a heavy linker into a heavy auto double feels a bit weird at first, but it makes breaking combos easier as the opponent is forced to do a follow-up attack of a lower strength. So for example, if the opponent starts a combo with a medium opener, the next attack has to be a light. KI2 also introduces a rock paper scissors style of priority for its specials too. For example, if Jago does a wind kick, I can do laser sword to beat it out and start a combo of my own. I can input laser sword at any point in the wind kick animation, and I'm guaranteed to beat this move out. I've heard some people call this system completely broken, as it means that if you know your opponent's special moves, you can easily counter them every single time, and I somewhat agree. While I do like this game a lot overall, there's a lot to learn, and none of it is very intuitive. I've mentioned a lot so far, but I haven't even mentioned mini ultra combos, parries, air juggles, throws, transitioner specials, retaliation moves, or no mercies, just to name a few. So it goes without saying that this game has a crap ton of system mechanics, and that's before we get into the characters themselves. Speaking of which, even though the characters all have the same general system mechanics and combo structure, their designs, voices, and animations help them to stand apart from each other, and while some of them have game plans that are easy to understand, others don't. In my opinion, the best character to start with in Killer Instinct is Jago, as he's the Shoto of the game. Fireball, DP, Tatsu, and Laser Sword are all you need when you get started, and Fulgore can also fit the bill if you need an edgy kind of Shoto. Everyone's favorite killer robot also has a Fireball, a DP, and a Tatsu-like move. One of the things I vividly remember about the first game when I played it a long time ago is that nearly every character in that game had charge motions for a lot of their special moves. From TJ Combo to Spinal to even Fulgore, KI1 was heaven for fans of charge motions, but a lot of these motions have simply been removed for KI2. I can only imagine how charge moves would work in a game that has input reading this strict, so I'm really happy that a lot of them are gone, to be honest. Perhaps the most important aspect of the character roster is that KI2 has the same amount of characters as the first game. Thunder, Cinder, and Riptor have been removed, being replaced by Maya, Tusk, and Kim Woo. While I really like these characters, I miss the original 3 a lot, especially Cinder and Riptor. Having a guy made out of fire fighting a dinosaur was part of the original game's charm, and it feels a bit weird without them. KI2's presentation still possesses the same gothic, very grungy tone of the first game, and the best place to experience this is the character select screen. The characters here look amazing, as their 3D models have lots of detail put into them, and they all immediately stand out from one another. I can't think of characters in other fighting games, especially fighting games in the mid-90s that look like the ones here, so Rare did an exceptional job at making identifiable and memorable characters. Whether you like characters who prioritize efficiency over style, acrobatics and flair over being serious, or even characters who can just flat out hit like a truck with a high damage output, there's a character for every type of player in KI2. When it comes to the game's reception, it's a bit challenging to find critical opinions due to this game's age, but I was able to find a review from Next Generation magazine in their May 1996 issue. Scoring the game a 3 out of 5, the outlet praised KI2's audio and addition of new mechanics, but it criticized the game's frame rate and similarities to the first game. As this was just the first game with more mechanics and some new characters, not everybody saw it as a true sequel. After all, the combo structure, types of music, presentation, tone, and the graphical style were all pretty much the same as KI1, so KI2 definitely gave some players deja vu. As for the game's home port to the Nintendo 64, it technically doesn't exist, because what we got instead was Killer Instinct Gold, a downscaled version of KI2 with some changes due to technical limitations. The stages are the most obvious example, as instead of being detailed pre-rendered videos, they're now 3D environments. If you wanted some brand new Killer Instinct action at home, this was your only choice, so I hope you felt comfortable doing combos and special moves on one of these. Even though KI Gold had some graphical and audio changes when compared to the arcade version, it's still KI2 at the end of the day, and you can have a lot of fun with this version of the game specifically. Speaking of home ports, due to Rare being under contract by Nintendo at the time, a Super Nintendo port of KI2 was developed, but never released. In an interview with former Rare employee Chris Tilston, he revealed that KI2 on SNES was far along in development and it was more technologically advanced than the SNES port of KI1, but after the Nintendo 64 became the next big thing from Nintendo, development of the game shifted to that platform instead. On July 25th, 2015, Tim Stamper, one of the founders of Rare, posted this seemingly inconspicuous picture to his Twitter account, but if we zoom it in and rotate it a little bit, we can see some labels that read KI2. Does this mean that KI2 on SNES exists somewhere in the world? I mean, I hope it does, I hope it survived somehow. Moving on, while writing this video script, I realized that a lot of the mechanics in this game made their way into KI 2013, albeit in a more fluid manner. Meter became the Shadow Meter, and using part of it in the middle of a combo for more damage is a big part of this game too. Characters also have different enders, although they don't affect ultra combos. Rose also made a return to open up turtles, and many characters have access to standing overheads, with some animations being based on certain moves from KI2. Juggles also make a return, and being able to launch the opponent with Laser Sword into a Shadow DP not only feels amazing, but it also feels like a natural evolution of the mechanics from KI2. Due to how old this game is, it would make absolutely no sense for KI 2013 to feature its systems with no changes at all, and this also means that things like the parry, retaliation moves, and no mercies don't make a return. However, ultimates do, and they look super cool now. Being able to disintegrate the enemy with Fulgore's chest beam or use Tusk's heated up sword to bring the hurt on the enemy feels like a love letter to the older games. And now that I've mentioned Tusk, the 3 new characters introduced in KI2 also appear in 2013, and they look much better, especially Kim Woo. I love her new outfit and animations, and having to animate a nunchuck fighter in a 2D fighting game couldn't have been easy, what with how fast characters in these games tend to animate. The villain from KI2's story, Gargos, also shows up in this game too, and he's awesome. He has a lot of new moves, and being able to summon minions and punch through space and time is something that feels straight out of the older games, and I just can't get enough of it. Now that we're on the topic of characters, remember when I said there was a cut vampire character earlier? One of this game's newcomers, Mira, is exactly that, and she can bite the enemy to recover her life. I'm not sure if the developers of KI 2013 specifically wanted to revisit this scrapped character, or if this is just all a massive coincidence, but I'm really hoping it's the former. Killer Instinct 2 is a fun yet imperfect game, and if you can be bothered to emulate it on PC, I suggest giving it a go. Although the input reading AI in arcade mode will make you tear your hair out in frustration, playing with a friend can actually be pretty fun once you understand the game mechanics. Even though it might not have aged perfectly just to be nice to the game, it still feels nowhere near as stiff as the first Killer Instinct, providing a more enjoyable experience overall. Although the character designs and the music are really stuck in the 90s, they're really enjoyable as a sort of time capsule back to 30 years ago, and the game has a lot of charm and personality as a result. It's especially awesome seeing how a lot of mechanics made it into KI 2013, and it means that this game has an undeniable legacy that still lives on. They don't make them like they used to, and I think that Killer Instinct 2 proves that. Thanks for watching, I hope you had fun, and I'll see you in the next one.